Welcome, restoration professionals, to Restoration Minutes, your source for industry information and education. Be sure to like and rate us if you enjoy the content we provide.
This episode is brought to you by Helix Co., the most advanced time and material ecosystem for ROMs, time and material billing, job sharing, with digital records and much more. Check us out at www.helixco.io.
All right, welcome back into a new episode of Restoration Minutes. Today I've got my good friend Paul from Clean Claims here, and as usual, I'm sure we're going to jump to a million topics and kind of set the world on fire. So, Paul, welcome in, man.
Hey, thanks for having me back on. Mike and I talking is not a shortage of conversations. It was like that when we worked together in the field. So it is we can make this go as long as we possibly need to.
Hurricane season's coming up June 1st, which I know is one of the things we're going to talk about is hurricane prep, but we're going to take a little bit different stab at it this time. We're going to kind of the workers' point, the project managers, your technicians, kind of their point of view. And so that's kind of where this first part of this, podcast is going to be coming from. So Paul, do you want to start? You want me to kind of start,
No, I can throw some ideas out there. One thing for a lot of contractors, they hear hurricane prep and they're already probably rolling their eyes thinking we just got out of hurricane season or going into it. It's really, how are you prepping those guys? Because most outfits, they're running day-to-day residential, or some are full commercial, but they're running day-to-day smaller projects. How are you setting your team up for success with, having those weekly meetings on what those processes are versus your day-to-day residential or kind of the projects you have going on. If you're making any changes from last year, running through, implementing them, maybe putting some of that stuff into your next day-to-day job, just really finding a way to get that process set up, finding either time to meet, if you're looking at new technology, looking at new safety, if we need to get our team OSHA certified or get new PPE fittings done, now's the time to do it. Because from what we've heard, there's different pockets in the country, but for most people right now, their claims are kind of down. They're not as busy as they normally are. Now's kind of the time to jump. It's not, June, July, August to start prepping on this stuff. It's prepping it now, but also from a technician standpoint, what went well? What was the colossal chaos that you couldn't figure out on those jobs? How do we solve it, make it easier going forward? So it's having those conversations now, having those lunch and learns, or that Friday afternoon team outing where we can talk about this thing or go through different processes. You just want to start having that conversation now because, looking at the weather patterns now, who knows when we're going to get hit with a storm next? It might be in a couple weeks. It may not be until Thanksgiving of next year, but putting that time and effort now will pay a lot of dividends in the future.
One of the things I tried to do at the last company I was at is change the mentality. And it's not for every company. The smaller companies that only go towards that, they go towards that. They only go to hurricane. But I tried to get us to change it to just a cat preparedness because we're responding to floods, we're responding to polar vortexes, fires in California possibly, things like that. And, it can take quite a bit. And because, even if you're only going to do hurricane, you've got to make sure, especially when it comes to your technology that you use, whether you use Helix Co. or any other time material thing, it's different than what most people use in their day-to-day, unless they're a strictly commercial company. And the last thing you want is to lose hundreds of thousands and even millions of dollars because your guys don't know how to document stuff right. And so that training needs to happen all year round. Another thing is I got an article that will be coming out probably by the time this podcast hits, that one of the biggest things that is an issue out there, if you go into OSHA is one of my big things that, most companies are weak on. And if you're on a big enough project where you're going to have a health and safety officer, that guy should have his OSHA 30. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. That is like the minimum threshold. If you start reading the guidelines, basically someone that supervises others is supposed to have the OSHA 30. Now, your other workers or supervisors that are on the ground, kind of a thing, like overseeing a small crew, should have their OSHA 10. I mean, that's just basic worker safety, But if you're going to be supervising others, you should have your OSHA 30. So anybody that's a health and safety officer should have that. And so, just like Paul said, I mean, there is a million things you got to do to prep, and it is nonstop. And so I really try to push everybody that I work with, contractors I consult with, that, get out of the mentality of only hurricanes. Yeah, that's the big ticket every year, but as we saw this past year, that didn't happen. And the polar vortex was a little bit, but there was plenty of fires this past year, obviously, on the West Coast. Tons of companies went out there and made money. A lot of guys that chase hurricanes wish that they had gone out there, that kept waiting because they didn't want to get caught in between the two. And, you can never depend on anything. I mean, I know after Katrina, when we got into this, El Nino type of pattern, there wasn't a hurricane that struck the States in 6 years, I think, 6, 7 years without impact. So, I mean,
Yep.
We could be looking at a dry spell, and so you'd better get your sales team out there working on day-to-day commercial stuff.
Yeah, get out there selling, but also this is where, when's the last time you talked to that vendor that does your dumpsters and toilets? When's the last time you've met with your safety supplier? Are you even using the right stuff? Because we all know during a storm, it's whatever I can get my hands on, because, Home Depot and Lowe's aren't open. So we're just trying to make sure, because everyone normally has stock for that first, 7 to 14 days. Well, if the storm's bad enough and there's enough works, who's my guy to resupply me? Where is it coming from? How much do we have left in the trailer? Going through getting all that stuff organized. But then what are new things we can look at? I know some of my contacts are actually at a couple shows now, and I got photos today on a new system that can actually replace having the old type of scaffolding that someone can set up on their own. It's for small, like little things that are coming out now that we have time. Let me send my project managers or whoever's in charge of purchasing. Let's go explore this stuff now. Let's go look at it,
Yeah, and I agree with you. I mean, I started out with, a franchise group, as a lot of people do. Then I moved into some independents and some big independents, and I just left probably one of the biggest. And, the biggest problem I found, even with the bigger companies I work for, is exactly what you said. They may have a good relationship with one rental company that they use day in, day out in their local business. And then they wait to build a relationship, or they're freaking out when that guy runs out during a hurricane and they're calling another company. Well, I'm going to tell you, you're at the bottom of that guy's list if he don't know you, because he don't know if you pay your bills or not. Mm-hmm. So all the other guys that they've worked with in the past is who's going to have that priority. So you need to have 2 backups to every primary. You need to have 3 sources of everything, whether it's dumpsters, porta-johns, portable water, man cams, generators, desiccants, so on and so forth. I mean, you got to be at least 3 deep, or you're going to be in trouble. I mean, there's just no way around that.
And this is a simple thing to add to it. Where are those contacts? Are they all on your owner's phone, or do you actually have them on just a simple spreadsheet that someone can access? Like simple things like that. Now is the time to take the 20 minutes or half a day, actually build a spreadsheet, or regardless where you put it. Hey, here's actually a list of all our vendors. Maybe call them. Maybe that vendor's not even in business anymore, but yet you might rely on them. Now's the time to call, build that relationship, and just have it's the same thing. We have a muster point whenever, on job sites or when disasters. We kind of need to have one for information too. Where do we find our vendors? How do we get a hold of this? Because your owner or your senior PM, he may not be the guy that's going to be trying to make that call at the moment. So at least have that knowledge across your entire organization.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And, kind of with that, one of the things that I started implementing a few years ago in my previous life as a, director of a CAT team is getting firm agreements with all those vendors at all 3 levels in place beforehand. And what I mean by that is, A, they need to know where they're getting paid. But the biggest thing for you is you need to have them get their invoices to you in a timely manner. I mean, that has been one of the biggest things that I learned when it comes to dealing with vendors is that, hey, if you don't have I'm going to tell you that I need it in 10 days. I'm going to penalize you if it's late after 10 days. And then I've written some of them that if it's beyond 30 days, then you don't get paid. You acknowledge it. And it is tough to get some contractors to sign that, but a lot of your reputable ones will, because they're typically wanting to get paid and get their invoices out as soon as possible anyhow. But the problem I've had is I did Hurricane Michael. That was what, 2017, I think, 2018, 2017, I think. Anyhow, had a fuel company I used. I don't want to throw anybody under the bus. 2.5 years later, I get an invoice from Hurricane Michael. And then they were trying to force us and get their attorneys involved over an invoice that was 2.5 years old. Well, we went back and did an audit, and I'm like, well, good for you. And then, that drove a wedge between us, and I never used them again, and they probably said I was dirt, but the fact is that, I can't go back to my client now and bill for that, and so getting your invoices in a timely manner is a huge thing, kind of what Paul was also talking about is, fit testing all your guys, again, OSHA. But one of the biggest things, like I bring up in the classes that I teach, that most contractors still don't know, which is shocking to me, is that an N95 is considered a respirator. So you cannot go willy-nilly handing those out to labor and guys that are, working on your job sites, because you, as the general contractor, are responsible for worker safety. All right. So you better just go out and buy you a bunch of the K95s or things that are registered as a dust mask and put those out, if you're going to put anything out. Either that or you call in, there's a lot of teams out there that can come in and fit test 100 guys in a day. One of the two, but do not go putting guys into N95s and half-face respirators if they haven't been fit tested, because not only can OSHA show up and get you, that employee can sue you if he gets sick or anything else happens as a result of that. It's just, there's too many things that go wrong, and most contractors, especially the ones that are just now getting into this world, hey, I'm going to go after it this year, it's my first time, or even their second time. The biggest thing I try to tell them is team up with a bigger contractor. Go out there and build a relationship. Let that guy bring you into some bigger projects and teach you the ropes and the rules of the game. I mean, really.
Yeah, and throw a shameless plug out there if you are looking. Global Catastrophe Training has a great training in June that goes over that kind of stuff. But it's the one thing that's shocking, and even working in this industry for 12 years, going to some of those trainings and seeing some of the other things, that it's not the 18-wheeler going down the highway. It's not the all the desiccants and generators, the shot we all see on Instagram and LinkedIn and all that. It's the amount of stuff you go through on, is the site safe? Did we actually have the safety training? Are my guys hydrated? Do we have proper stations set up for that? There's more of that going on than there is psychrometrics of the drying chamber, things of that nature, because you got to make sure the work is safe, but your employees are safe. And especially if you're, large-scale restoration contractors, that is a bit more because they're in commercial buildings. Your day-to-day restore, that's something you still need to be looking into, and it gets overlooked a lot. Like, did we just buy that respirator off the shelf at Home Depot, or do they actually know how to use it and clean it after you use it?
Yeah, absolutely. And one big thing that most contractors are probably not even aware of, I am used to adopting in my policies and in my terms and conditions the Navy heat standard, because that's been the only standard out there for how your guys should take breaks, and I have that in my contracts when I do my contracts. A lot of people do not know that, I think it's April of this year, OSHA is releasing theirs. As a matter of fact, you can already download the app that will tell you when your guys need to hydrate, when they need to have shade, when they need to go cool off after working at certain temperatures and humidity levels. It is going to be a big issue this year. It has been under review for almost 2 years now, and heck, I have to give my wife credit. My wife's the one that found it. When I was doing research for my book, my wife is a nurse, and so she knows a lot about OSHA stuff. She's been a nurse manager and also worked with health departments and things like that, and done some joint stuff with CDC, you name it. And so she knows it probably better than I do sometimes, especially when it comes down to PPE, because, you know, in hospitals and things like that and communicable diseases, you got to definitely know your stuff. Anyhow, doing research for my book, she found it. I didn't have time to put it into my book, but it is crazy. And I called Jim Thompson, a good friend of mine, who is like probably the OSHA god in our industry, and Jim didn't even know. And this thing is going to just roll out in April, and most contractors are not going to be aware of it, and they're going to get in trouble over it. It's going to be a big issue.
Yeah, and it not only PPE and safety, but also, you know, knowing, especially if you're traveling for a cat, let alone just your local market, knowing, you know, your asbestos, your lead. You know, I know we were both down at the AGA event down in Miami, and asbestos testing is something that came up, and
Yep.
there's a whole lot of misinformation, gray areas, or hey, I heard this somewhere, this is how we do it. It's kind of something that we need to shed a light on, because one, worker safety, but two, are you documenting any of this stuff? There's a lot of tests that can help document it, but if you're not doing it, you can get away for so long until all of a sudden that fine comes down and slaps on you.
Yeah, I mean, I worked for a company, and I learned the hard way. I worked for a company in 2010 that went in and did the Nashville floods, and they did a hotel that was 2 years old. Them and the company, they were working with a bigger company then, and the company that they worked for and them got sued for $14 million for asbestos exposure in a building that was 2 years old. I went to work there after that, and so that's the story that I tell everybody, because I mean, the company I went to work for barely survived. The parent company went out of business, and a lot of those guys work with other companies now, so I'm not going to say the name, but it was a big outfit, huge outfit during that time. And then I learned, you know, more things. I got my asbestos supervisor certification in, I think it was like 2012, 2013. And I learned then that basically, you know, asbestos is not illegal, which a lot of people walking around the streets today and a lot of restorers think that it is. But you can go to Home Depot or Lowe's right now and pick up a 5-gallon bucket of mud, and 1 out of every 4 there is going to be positive asbestos. Now, what percent, point count, you know, is a different thing. So, you know, education, I would never, in a commercial structure, touch any sheetrock without having it tested first. I mean, that was the rule that I've lived by in the last 2 companies I worked for, because of the lessons I've learned in the past, you know, and hopefully some of you guys can learn from mistakes that me and Paul have learned over the years, and learn from that, so you don't make the same mistakes, you know. So that's kind of why we're talking about these. Paul, let's jump into you know, what the technicians, you know, and the project managers, basically your employees, need to be prepared for, or if you're listening to this, what you need to be prepared for before you travel on hurricane.
Yeah, a lot of it's just, you know, we won't get into too much of the nuts and bolts of actually packing your truck and what to bring and stuff like that. But when you are traveling, it's knowing, what am I supposed, like, what is my job on this one? What am I supposed to be getting? Because it's not like a residential or a day-to-day job where, you know, oh, we can go take who's handling what? Am I taking moisture readings? Am I doing the photos? Who's doing what? What's your job? And how do you segment that kind of stuff out? That's where going through your processes and procedures now, whether it's dry running it in your building, even doing a microcosm in a residential, if that's what you do in the off season, like knowing what your clear and defined role is, so that who owns what in this process. That's one thing we find is, yes, your project managers, your higher level guys, yes, they're working a lot of different things, but most technicians, it's, am I extracting? Am I hauling equipment off the trucks? Did I take photos? Am I the one that's doing the moisture mapping? Or am I doing all of it? You know, knowing a clear defined role.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big thing, is have you even been trained to do it? And that's the reason year-round training is important. I mean, it is stupidly important, because you're guys that I've been on jobs, and it's at every level. I mean, so don't get me wrong. Everybody, I don't care, the biggest contractors make this mistake sometimes. They never want to say no, you know, especially during a storm. They want every dollar they can get their hands on. They're not going to say no to a job. The problem ends up being, though, is you end up rushing in to kind of get started before you get things done and documented and settled in. But the big thing I always see is that somebody has been put in charge of doing equipment counts that don't know what a 200 amp tower is. They do not know what spider box is. They have no clue, especially when you get into power distro and large equipment, and they don't know. They don't know what to call it. They don't know how to count it. I know a big contractor I used to be friends with, and he turned an invoice into me, and thank God, we had lots of photos because he only had one section. He put down two of rigid duct from his desk into the building. Whoever he had making counts counted 1, 2 tubes coming out. He didn't realize that it's per 25-foot section, and he had like 3 or 4 each way. And that was on like 10 different machines at this school. So that is a ton of money that would have been left on the table if we didn't catch that and like doing our internal audit and stuff like that. So it is crazy important. But when you start, especially storms, it's a lot easier to prepare for than like tornadoes and things like that. But if you're with a team that's going to be traveling, you need a go bag, and you need to make sure that you've got your prescriptions. You really need to not have them with some private local pharmacy. It's going to be hard to get those transferred for you. It's really better to be, I hate to say it, big box store kind, CVS, Walgreens, Target, whatever, those types of things, because then when you travel, you can get your prescriptions filled there, at the nearest one that's open sometimes. But, making sure that you have all that you're going to need as an individual, I would say for at least 2 weeks. Each,
Yeah.
and that needs to be your minimum that you have.
Yeah, and it seems like, what we're saying here is you're like, oh yeah, knowing how to moisture map and setting up air movers, all that kind of stuff. We're bringing this up because Mike and I have both been on jobs together where all of a sudden, if you don't capture that stuff while you're out there, if you don't document it right, the amount of time and effort that goes into the back end of going through paperwork again, trying to justify things, we can't submit the invoice because we didn't set this up right. If you do it on the front end and be prepared on the front end, the amount of hours and time to get paid on the back end, it's hard to even qualify because it's so much headache on the backside that if you can set up a job right and start that documentation right, it's just a snowball rolling downhill from there versus chasing your tail for the next 6, 8, 12 months before you get $1 in from that job. It can make or break companies that are going down to chase a storm. Just the simple things of, did we have our photos? Did we moisture map? Did we track equipment? It seems simple, but on these large scale projects, it multiplies very, very fast.
Oh, absolutely. And, it's amazing that how much money basically gets left on the table because of poor planning and poor training of the staff. Like I said, and I've witnessed it and been part of it at all levels, small companies, large companies, because the larger companies can take on more jobs and bigger projects, and so you end up pulling in all these people from your company, and they may have just been a helper yesterday and now they're running a crew. And so hopefully you've done a good job in training them and setting them up for success rather than failure. Do not, whether it's our software or any other, time and material type of product out there, do not take a guy that has only been doing Xactimate kind of stuff, unit pricing, whether it's Xactimate, Symbility, or any of those, and toss him into this world without any preparation. He is going to be crazy. He's going to quit on you. I've seen contractors lose good employees over that because then the contractor gets frustrated that nothing's getting done right. Well, it's the contractor's fault because he didn't train his people. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, but really, the key is just being prepared because I'd love to say we can teach you everything under the sun, but every storm and every loss is different. You may run into something you've never seen before. But that, again, coming back to knowing your vendors, knowing your strategic partners, who you can call when you go, I have no idea what I just stumbled in on this. Is this a good idea or not? Like, the most powerful sales tool you can have in restoration is no.
Yep.
You don't have to sign every job. You can say no. It's not a bad thing if you look at it, you do your kind of do your dollar cents, risk reward. Can we even accommodate this client? It's okay to say no.
Yeah, don't take on the clients that, are not for how you were set up, and another thing, this will be towards the actual contractors, but know the laws of the state that you're going to work in. There is a lot of particular laws. A lot of guys come running into Florida just, especially during Ian. I think a lot of them learned their lesson after that and either got things done right before they came back from Helene and Milton. But during Ian, restoration contractors, a lot of them with certain franchise groups thinking they could roll into Florida and start setting equipment and doing demo on projects, ended up in handcuffs and in jail. If you're not registered with that state, you can't just roll in and say, oh, I'm working with my friend over here at this franchise or this other company. No, you better at least have some legal paperwork done that you are their subcontractor because they're licensed in the state and you're not. And then you better know the asbestos. You do not touch asbestos in a commercial building in the state of Florida without testing it. It's a law, And it's not a law if you go to Georgia, unless they've changed it since the last time I was in Georgia, or Alabama or any of those other coastal states, So, but that don't mean you shouldn't do it to protect yourself.
Yeah. So what's with the last couple section here? We'll kind of go a little more upbeat on this end. What's happening with Helix Co? What's new? What's old? What's anything out in the pipeline? I know there's all kinds of stuff going on. I mean, restoration's getting a spotlight on it right now. I don't know if you saw, Sunbelt Rentals is now on the sharing on the New York Stock Exchange. They were ringing the bell the other day. There's more and more starting to come out. So kind of what's on you guys' front?
Well, I can talk about it right now because I'm going to not let this podcast drop until probably right before PLRB. I just got news that our big deal with Contractor Connection is not going to land until the 15th or 17th. They want to hold the news until right before PLRB. So, but we are basically the required software for their new commercial program. A lot of people are going to be excited to see this new program roll out. I know that a lot of these TPA commercial programs in the past have not really panned out very well. I feel like the leadership at Contractor Connection has got a good plan for this, and it's going to be interesting. I don't want to divulge too much because that's their job, but I will tell most people that you're going to be surprised at how good this thing is going to come out of the gates. Completely different than it has in the past. It's going to be great. We also just signed to be the main software for Core Group and their new commercial program as well. That will be landing probably on the 11th, I think is when that's going to be announced. Today is the 5th, so probably next Friday, I think is next Thursday, Friday, something like that's when it's going to be announced. And then we got a couple of other deals that I don't really even want to say on here until I actually have ink on paper that I'm expecting to also land this month. I got two more. We also did get approved, which I think you guys are on there too, but for the SPAR program for Pure Clean as well. January, February has been big months for us, but it's taken 10 months to get some of those things over the plate. So it is a long work in progress, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I can share from the software side, with AI and all this stuff now saying how easy it is to make apps, a lot of people think, oh, you can just move this button or add this feature. I can tell you right now, it is not as simple as the commercials make it look. A lot of development time. God, we don't want to go into the amount of money it costs to get some of this stuff moved, but luckily it's, with having younger softwares like Helix Go and Clean Claims, it's exciting because we're able to actually make impactful updates and changes that clients are looking for, but also something that we would use every day. It's stuff I would have used every day. So it's exciting in that aspect. And yeah, I mean, our partnership, we signed our partnership last year. We're going to have some more coming on that here shortly, which is going to be extremely exciting to be able to connect the two. And it's really, I think the next 12 months is going to be an interesting time on the technology side of restoration, because I think things are going to get better. You're not going to be stuck in those old legacy systems that you're just 5-10 years of it just doesn't do what I want it to do. There's actually going to be options out there to solve that.
Yeah, and you know, I think that's a huge thing. You know, in our industry is slow to adopt new stuff. I mean, it just is. I mean, it is known for being slow, and that's construction, restoration, all of it. You know, I know a lot of big time contractors that does millions every year that their guys still go out with a notebook and a pen to scope a project, and that'd be sometimes on a brand new thing. They're going to get some blueprints and they'll do things, but they still do things old school, you know, and that is changing rapidly. If you know, like my motto in life is evolve or die, you know,
Yep.
and contractors, you guys, I mean, not to try to tell you your business, but you better get with the times because these smaller companies are coming in out of nowhere. We've got one that uses our software, but I don't want to like say their name and then not say somebody else's name. But you know, 5 years ago, you never heard of them, and now they're blowing up everywhere, and they have jumped into multiple locations, being presented on stage by some big companies. I mean, it is crazy, but it's because they treat their employees right. I mean, the way these guys have their office set up and workouts and trainings and morale and life coaches, they take care of their people, you know, so that their people work harder for them. But other than that, you know, they have adopted new technologies early. They haven't been afraid to go out and try to use AI stuff. And yeah, AI's got a bunch of junk in it. I mean, don't get me wrong, you know, and that's from a tech perspective. It hallucinates. But there's new things, large language models out there that does not hallucinate because it only goes off of the data that you put into it. And so now you're going to start finding a lot of that kind of stuff. And a lot of softwares, I'm not sure if you guys have heard this, Paul, you know, we were ready to dive all in on AI kind of stuff. And then we started working with some of these bigger companies, and they were like, there's a lot of lawsuits on personal information out there that you cannot do that. And so now there's a big pullback from some of the AI stuff to where you're going to have your own internal system. It cannot be an external system that maybe somebody can hack and then get personal data. Have y'all heard that?
AI is a really interesting thing. As in my last outfit, we worked with large language models. I think the AI is part of the future. I don't think it's the future that is being promised right now by other solutions out there, because as slow as we are to adopt, sometimes it's not a bad thing. If you look, Facebook, Meta, Google, all the big softwares out there, they all laid off their customer support teams. They all laid off a bunch of teams and went fully into AI. Well, if you read the tea leaves and look through Bloomberg and some of this stuff, they're rapidly hiring those people back right now because they spent millions and billions of dollars into these AI solutions. Their response rates went up, but their customer service plummeted. Not to mention, they laid off developers. It's now going to take triple the time it did before for the developers to fix what AI was building.
Yeah.
So is AI still a big part of the future? Yes, absolutely. We're looking into different models, but we've purposely waited. You know, we're a software for the technician in the field.
Yep.
Does the technician need to have some of these? No. Is this wall wet or dry? I don't need AI to tell me that. I need a meter on it.
Yep.
So there's certain things that we are looking to incorporate, but we're strategically being slow to that because, you know, it's one thing to find and learn how the technology works and then implement it. It's another thing to implement the shiny nugget, which is AI, and try and get investors excited, for it to just backfire on you.
Yeah, and I don't want to say any names, and we'll probably end up being guilty of it at some point ourselves, but there's a lot of companies out there that are using AI as a hype word, but really all that they are doing is automation.
Yep.
You know, if you do this, then that'll happen. Well, that's not really AI, you know, that's automation.
It's called developers.
Yeah, exactly. And so, you know, that's just rules. I mean, rules go all the way back to Linux, even before Excel, where, you know, you set up mathematical formulas and multiple page formulas, you know, and that's really, you know, in a nutshell, kind of what a lot of things are that some people call AI. It's not true artificial intelligence. It's not even true large language models. It is automations. And so make sure that, you know, you don't jump on the hype train of someone who's just using AI to try to get you excited, because there are some people that are too easy to jump on new things. I mean, so, you know, be smart about it.
Correct. But also, just remember, AI is a prompt-based tool. It will not learn your thoughts. It will not do what you want it to do on its own. If you don't have the time and resources to implement, possibly 3 to 6 months to train it to what you need it to, it may not be the solution for you. Now, there's great models out there. Do I use it every day on creating emails or ideas and stuff? Absolutely. I think it's definitely part of the future, but if you're looking to invest significant capital into that and something your restoration company is going to be using, do the extra research on it before you sink into it and then it not work maybe the way you thought it would.
Yeah, one I give a plug to, and obviously I don't get paid to, and that I've been using quite a bit is Google's Notebook LM. So if you guys into that, check into that. It does zero hallucinations, which ChatGPT and even Gemini and a couple of those others will do, Gronk or whatever. That's because if someone's put it into Gronk or ChatGPT as a fact, sometimes those AIs think that that's a fact, and they will give you that information that is a fact, and it's not a fact. And so the cool thing about the Notebook LM is that you upload your own documents. You point it to only specific websites. Like I've got one that I've built in for OSHA and safety stuff, and it only goes to the OSHA site. It goes to the NIOSH and things like that, to where it pulls that data from. And that is the best way to go, I think, because then it's kind of locked in. It's AI. It's still going to help you out, but it's controlled and boxed in a little bit. Tell us a little bit about Clean Claims' new distribution thing, too.
Yeah, we're excited. We just partnered up with Aramco, which most of you guys use for all your materials. They are now going to be selling our remote monitoring products. So if you do, next time your Aramco reps comes by, or most likely when they knock on your door next, it does have our ability to get our remote monitoring in, which we are working on some cool innovations on that side with some new sensors, and we have some new base stations out there as well. So we have our IBR 400, which is the one that you can use as a hotspot to connect your computers to. We do now have a lower cost option that just takes out that hotspot feature. So it can still work for all your sensors. You can still connect to it, but it is a lower price point to get into, which is a nice way to do that. But then also, we're working on, and we'll be in beta here very, very shortly, our new instant moisture mapping feature. So not only can you use the LiDAR on your phone to actually go through and get an instant floor plan, now you can do all your moisture mapping, containments, wet zones, all that kind of stuff, place equipment, all instantly. Not 3 to 6 to 12 hours from now, not when we get a scan back. You can do it right there on site and be able to track and document all that. We're extremely excited for that, as well as, we are doing some great things right now with Legends brand. So we're working on some different things because a lot of their new dehues and air scrubbers have their remote monitoring capabilities. The one negative to that is you had to connect it to like the homeowner's Wi-Fi, or it was kind of connect to an open source. We're solving that problem with our base stations. So not only will it allow to connect, but we'll also have that data flow directly into Clean Claims. So that adds another arsenal into your pocket of capturing that DHU rating, showing it's working. Is it running optimally? But also, you're capturing your relative humidity, your GPP, your grains, your temperature, all that out on the site. So it's really, we're making a big push to get access to you, because it's not as you're running leaner right now than you ever did before. But also, as you're looking at the financial background, how can we improve some of that gross profit on jobs without having to change staff, without having to change trucks? What if we just eliminated some of the cost we needed, but still captured everything we did? It doesn't eliminate technicians. This isn't saying you don't need to train your guys anymore. But if your guys were spending more time on new work or quality of work versus, I got to hit every single point in this house, I got to get every single reading. We all know day 1 and 2, that's where we're doing extraction. We're doing heavy demo. We're setting equipment. Day 3, 4, and 5, we're really just windshield time. We're sending guys all over the place to drive and get those readings.
Yep.
Well, this is where using technology, what if I could eliminate 2 days of my guys going out there and they could focus on larger projects or newer projects? Or what if that job is across town it's a big project, but now I'm having to turn down 2 local jobs because I'm having all my resources. This is just another tool to allow you to capture more work without having to say no.
Yeah, because there are a lot of big time groups, especially some of the franchises type of groups that I've worked with, where they have a full time monitoring team. I've worked with some companies where they had 3 or 4, and that's all those guys did every day. They got in their vehicle, they knew the list of jobs that came in yesterday or that they were already on that were added to their list, and that's all they do. They drive around and monitor all day long. Well, now that guy is not really obsolete, but what you do is you put him running jobs, and so, or if you don't have that kind of team and it's your regular guys that are trying to start new jobs and monitor other jobs that are already going on, well, now they can, instead of doing 1 job a day and 3 monitors, they might can do 2 or 3 jobs a day, so you're doing more with less kind of a thing. And obviously we're not,
and the perk is,
lay you off, but
the perk is, if you do have that monitoring team, and let's say you have 10 jobs you got to get to, most likely you can't get to all 10. We're going to try everything we can, but now having this data, I can now triage better. Hey, this house looks great. Everything's coming down. We're 2 days away from it probably being dry. Let me send a report or send a quick text to the homeowner. We just knocked that off the list. So now we can actually make adjustments or say, by the way, we can tell that dehue's stuck in defrost mode. Homeowner turned this sucker off last night. It looks like we tripped a breaker. Well, those are the first jobs I need to go to first. Not at the end of the day where we have a full day of nothing happening. Let's allocate resources better. So it's not replacing anyone. It's just working smarter, not harder.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I think we're going to just about wrap this one up, Paul. And I definitely appreciate you coming back on. Like I said, I'm going to have to hold this one for about 10 days, and then I'll be able to release it. So
if you see any random gaps in this one or random voices not talking, something changed in between there. Yeah. But yeah, we'll have to do a couple of these for fun. I know Global Catastrophe's got a big training that's going to be a lot of fun down in Florida. Maybe we can do one live from there. We'll be up here in Savannah for RIA. We'll have to do some on-site type stuff and get creative with it.
Isn't there 2 events in Savannah this year?
Possibly. I don't know. They seem to be popping up out of the woodwork right now.
Yeah, I was thinking there was another smaller event that was happening in Savannah. Oh, I think it may have already happened. I think it's one of the owners' meetings or something like that for one of the smaller franchise groups or something like that. But yeah, I know that I'm having to go back to Washington. I just got back from Cotality there, last month, and now I got to go back at the end of this month for PLRB, which is the biggest one of them all, but one thing I'm excited about is I've been working with Aramco. I can't say a whole lot about that yet. I've been working with them for 2 years to do something that's different, but then also the experience. I definitely want to give them a plug for this year, because what I'm trying to do with those 2 things is have a large loss conference that's for the contractor. Because PLRB, as great as it is, we get to see all of our buddies, and it's great to actually, if you're a contractor, to try to get relationships with adjusters and consultants and AGAs and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, the actual conference, the learning part, is for them. Even though restorers and vendors pay for everything,
It's a carrier conference.
Exactly. It's the carrier's conference. And so what I'm trying to do is develop and get more of these conferences that deal with commercial and large loss. That's education for the contractors. And the contractors that already do it, because I will tell you, I did it for 20 years and I still learn stuff. There's always a newer way to do something or a better way to do something. And anybody that thinks that they know it all, they don't, obviously, but they're falling behind because there's always something new. Chris Carter, a good friend of ours, knows more than me when it comes to restoration. I mean, he's been doing it 25 years. Chris goes to every freaking class he can figure out a time to get to because he's always wanting to learn more. And having a learning mentality is what's going to definitely help you succeed in this industry.
Oh, absolutely. I'm the first to admit it. I learned stuff about air movers last week working with Legend Brands up in Nashville that I didn't know about on your your centrifugals versus your low profiles. I even learned something. I'm like, I've been placing these for years and I didn't even know that. Okay, that's interesting.
Yep. All right, Paul, I appreciate it, and we will probably do this again, maybe right after PLB.
Sounds good.
All right, thanks, man.